I am so happy today to have my friend Kristin Babik join us. Kristin, thanks for joining the podcast. Welcome, and let's get going. First of all, you are in Texas right now, right?
I am. Good old Houston, Texas.
Yep. And you and I met actually when we went to Steve Sims Speakeasy, and I did not know. Was that your first speakeasy?
No, it was not. I think that was my fourth.
Oh my gosh.
So I've been to a total of 6 so far.
Wow. And so that's just for those that don't know, Steve Sims, an author, speaker, amazing dude, hosts these things where you just show up. And I remember that one we showed up and the night you show up at a hotel and then you just get an email saying where to go the next day and then it's on and you just have no idea what to expect. And so I didn't know there were mortgage people that were going to be there. I ran into you and we became fast friends. So but I've only known you since then. So I want to kind of dive into, here's what I know about you. You do a ton of VA loans. You focus on helping veterans like crazy. You're invested heavily in everything you do. You don't do anything halfway, and you seek adventure everywhere you go. Am I missing anything?
No, that sounds about right.
So take us back and how'd you get to, first of all, how long have you been in the mortgage industry?
I've been in the mortgage industry since November of 2006.
Okay.
So a long time. I've seen a lot of ups and downs.
And when you were growing up, were you I just hope someday I can get into the mortgage industry?
No, actually, when I was little, I wanted to be in the FBI.
Really?
I did. I was telling my parents all the time that I was going to be an FBI agent, and I used to secretly run around and steal my brother's sniper magazines because he was in the Marines. And I would read through them to be this little investigator. And so I think I ended up being a pretty good loan officer investigator because a lot of times we're shifting through things and making sure we can put all the puzzle pieces together.
Wow. So your brother was a Marine or is a Marine.
Marine.
How much older is he than you are?
He's 5 years older than I am.
Okay. So you saw him doing it. You're I also want to do something super cool within, the U.S. government, protecting our soil kind of a thing. You want to be FBI. Do you remember that changing or are you currently an FBI agent? I guess,
No.
Can you tell us?
You should ask that question.
Yeah, we should ask.
No.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty cool though. I'm currently not an FBI agent
That we know of.
Yeah, she would say that.
that
if
we
she
know
was.
of, that I can
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that I'm not.
Okay. But you shifted away. Where'd you go to college?
I went to the University of Northern Colorado.
UNC in Greeley, right?
Yep. Good old
Nice.
Greeley.
What were you majoring in?
I majored in, I got 2 bachelors. So I did journalism for ad and PR and then communications for HR. Because ideally, when I got out of college, I had this grand dream. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to work for an advertising agency. I want to live in the big city. And then that changed a little bit, but it changed for me for the better just because I ended up branding more of myself than I did other companies or other individuals. So it worked out really well.
Wow. So that plan of leaving and being a big city New York ad person, did you try it? Did you move out there? You just were nope?
Nope, I ended up not moving out there at all. So during college, I ended up going to more of a closer school at UNC. I chaired at UNC. My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 19. So I wanted to stay a little bit closer to home to make sure that I could see her as much as possible. And my parents have always been absolutely wonderful. They came to all my games. And as I just continued through college, I ended up changing my major from being a teacher. I was going to be a kindergarten teacher to business. And then I moved from business over to ad and PR. And I just love the ad and PR phase. So I continued forward with that throughout college. And it's so crazy because I look back on all the times and I cheered for 4 years, right? And literally right before I graduated, they called me and it was a semester before and they said, "I'm sorry, Miss Babik, you're not going to be able to graduate." And I said, "What are you talking about?" They said, you don't have enough gym credits." And I said, "What do you mean I don't have enough gym credits? I've cheered for 4 years." I'm like, "You never took gym. So right now we can't allow you to walk or graduate because you don't have your gym credits." And I said, "Well, what are we going to do about this?" I said, "Because obviously I had gone through college, finished my first degree, and then added a second degree because I didn't want to leave college because I was cheering. So that's why I added the second one. So they said, well, the only class that you can sign up for is scuba diving. And you have to go every Monday night to learn how to be a scuba diver. So that's what I did for a semester, my last semester of college. I went to scuba diving lessons so I could graduate.
That's wild.
Which makes
funny
sense
because
for
all I
Greeley.
had were gym credits.
Right, totally.
Well, interesting that you took scuba diving because rumor has it after you graduated, you had an interesting experience in a land down under.
I did. I was super excited. So right before I graduated, I saw this program called International Student Volunteers, and they were accepting students from around the world, and you could travel to different countries, whichever ones you were looking at. I looked at Romania, I looked at New Zealand, Australia, and I found this one, and it was, would you like to rebuild a wildlife park in Australia? And I was like, that's the one. I want to do that. So I applied and I wrote an essay to get in. And I remember I was sitting in the library, it was a week during finals, and I got the email that said that I was accepted. And I was like, yes. And I was more excited about going to Australia than I was about graduating college, which I had spent all this time, going to school for. But I was super excited. And
were you aware at the time?
Huh?
Were you aware at the time of all the things, the creatures that can kill you in Australia, especially at a wildlife park?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was looking for adventure. I have a big wild heart, and I'm okay with jumping on a plane and going to another country, not knowing anybody and making friends. For me, it's really easy. I know other people that might scare them and they're like, absolutely not. I would never do that. I don't even like to leave my state. Me, I'm like, let's travel everywhere we can possibly go, do as many things as we possibly can do. And that's what I did. I got on the plane and I met everybody there in Australia.
How cool is that?
It was very cool. So we rebuilt a wildlife park. It's called Bredl's Blue Planet. The focus was crocodiles. So we ended up building all of the trenches for the new crocodiles. So it was a full football field around. So we dug out all of the dirt and then it was cemented. And then we moved all of the animals over from the old wildlife park to the new one.
Wow.
So all the koalas, all the snakes, all the tarantulas, anything nasty and ugly, everything went with us. And then I traveled down the East Coast for 4 more weeks and then went to Fiji on the way back and stopped and learned a little bit more about the Fijian culture and visited some villages there and then headed back to the States.
Incredible experience.
How old were you?
I learned more traveling to Australia in 7 weeks than I learned in my 4 years of education.
Absolutely.
I highly recommend that students, even if you can start in high school and go through college, that you spend more time traveling and learning about the world and learning about how the world works with business and the relationships that you keep than any other school experience you'll ever have, because you learn so much. You learn about yourself, you learn about others, you learn about different countries, that it's not all bottled up just here in the US. There's so much more going on in this world than what you see, right? Because everybody here focuses on social media and Instagram and TikTok and what are my friends doing this weekend? And there's a whole nother world out there that you can see and participate in and be a part of. You just have to do it.
And now in my head is a whole new world.
It's no surprise that the two of you connected because this is King of Wanderlust, and I'm pretty much leaning in that direction myself. But it's clear why you two hit it off so well.
Well, I think that's such a good point. Like the international travel, I talk to so many people who've done international travel. There's just something different about somebody that's had that, that the world opened up to them, and you get different perspectives. You get to meet different people. You get that. Witnessing different cultures. And I think not leaving the country, you start thinking, well, this is how it is. Like, this is how it is. It's probably how it should be. It's how everybody does it. And when you get out there, it's just a whole different experience. Like you start opening up that, your mind completely. But that also makes sense to me why I was like, who wants to go to Guatemala? You're like, me. So you just take every chance you get for fun and adventure.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I'm on board.
That's a pretty great description of the foundation you bring into your early adult life. So let's talk about origin story as it pertains to the mortgage business and how you got into the business. And I love what you shared on the phone the other day about how you got into the business and how you attended your closings early on in your career. So maybe walk us through that, what got you in and how that first year or two went.
So funny story, lots of funny stories. So when I was in college, my family was struggling because my mom had cancer. So I had taken a part-time job at Hooters, and I would drive 70 miles from Greeley all the way to Denver every Friday, and I would work all weekend long, drive back up on Sunday night, go to school on Mondays, drive back down 70 miles, do Monday Night Football, and then drive back up to school.
Wow.
And then I would go to school all week, I would cheer on that weekend, and then it would kind of start the rotation, right? So anybody that I had ever met at Hooters, I saved all of their business cards. And so when I graduated, I started in sales, and I used to sell Nextel phones, right? The walkie-talkies. And I was an account manager for the Denver Broncos, and I would help set up all the radios for them for all of their game days.
Wow.
So that's what I originally started doing right out of college. And then I went more into a director of marketing position for an MMA company that was in Denver. So I would run all of the fighters through the radio spots and all the advertising, and all of the girls. I had 22 girls that I ran that did all the promo spots. And so I got to a point, I was like, gosh, I just really don't want to work nights and weekends anymore. Like, this is really weighing really hard on me, right? And I did that for about 1.5 years, and I started looking in the newspaper for another job, and I came across a posting, learn how to be a mortgage broker. And I was like, what's a mortgage broker? So I started looking it up. I'm like, well, this looks kind of cool. Maybe I'll apply. So I did. He hired 3 individuals, and he said the first one that closes the first deal will be hired to the team. And I was the first one that closed. I closed my first refinance with one of my past Hooters clients that I'm still friends with today.
Wow.
And that's how it started. So I started getting going, and I started in a really rough time, 2006, 2007, right? I didn't have any money. I said, this is what I want my career to be. This is what I want to do. And in order to make that happen, I'm going to have to get another job. I'm going to have to be able to work nights and then do mortgages during the day. So I did. I went and got a second job, and I worked a second job for about 3 years. And during that time, I don't know if you guys remember, but gas prices, they went from really, really low up to like $4 a gallon, right? Well, I couldn't afford gas to get to work anymore. And so what I did was I took money out of my savings account. I literally had like $3,000, and I went down the street to the Vespa shop and I bought myself a moped for $2,800, a little white moped with pink flowers. And I loved it because I brought it home, parked my car, and I could go on 1 gallon of gas, 100 miles. So I rode my moped everywhere. I used to live in downtown Denver, right by the zoo. And I would take it to closings. I would take it to go meet clients. I would drive it to work. I would drive it all over town. And I would just cruise around with my little helmet on, driving my moped. And I was happy as a clam because it only cost me $4 to go 100 miles. So it was awesome. I loved it.
I'm assuming you parked it when it snowed because you are in,
I was going to
Denver.
ask that too.
Oh yeah. You park it when it snows. Yeah, you don't want to do that and be unsafe. But then
You didn't go Mad Max with the spiked wheels and all that stuff.
Right. It was considered a bicycle. So you could just pull it up on the sidewalk and chain it up, and that was it. And then when you're done, unchain it, get back on it, and zoom, zoom, zoom away.
How cool is that?
It is cool. I love it. I love that little moped. I actually brought it down to Houston when I first moved here in 2012 to kind of feel it out a little bit. I lived down in 𝘁𝗵𝗲, and I don't know if y'all have ever been to 𝘁𝗵𝗲, but they have this big old bridge that you go over the water because all the sailboats come underneath, right? And the first time I tried to take it on the bridge, I was like one of those people. Have you ever seen the Dumb and Dumber movie where you like lean forward and like,
yeah.
That was me. I was trying to get it to work, but it wasn't. I ended up selling it because it's really hard in Texas with the highways and the roads. It's not a friendly zoom, zoom, zoomer city. So somebody will run you right off the road.
Well, I hope you still have a picture of the moped somewhere. That belongs framed in your office somewhere. That's just such a cool story.
I'll send you guys a picture. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
I would do everything. I would go to galas and that. I've got a couple pictures where I was wearing gala dresses with heels, riding on my moped.
Okay, I've got to ask, because there's a lot of people right now stressed out in the mortgage industry. You got in about the worst time possible to get into the mortgage industry. '06, you get the very tail end of the exciting times, and then you go into the point where people think mortgage originators are bad people because the media had just torn up originators. Everybody's running out of equity. Market is dropping like crazy. You blipped it, but I'd like a little bit more on, here you are, young, aggressive salesperson, history of sales and marketing, and you're like, I'm going to do this. And when you did that, everybody had just made a ton of money, and here comes Kristin, and you're like, I'm going to do it. And then just like, I just envision a record skipping and you looking around like crickets. So what was it like for you emotionally going through, I just changed my career and now I've got to do this thing that sucks?
Oh, it was hard. It was really hard. I mean, there's lots of times that I sat in my closet and cried and I was like, what did I do to myself? Like, why did I make this choice? Should I have thought about it a little bit more? For me, it's more about the mortgage industry is all about pivoting, right? You have to pivot, you have to change, and you have to adapt. Because if you don't, your business will die. It's just the way that it is, 100%. And I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards and they're, I got the whole loan officers are terrible. They just steal from people. They do all these things. And I would come back and I would have conversations with them, because it's like, Kristin, I didn't control the guidelines back then, right? I didn't make the guidelines. I followed the guidelines. Now, were there loan officers back then that bent the guidelines? Absolutely. We can all 100% agree on that, right? When you think about it from a homeownership standpoint of view, if you have a family that's W-2 borrowers and they make a fixed income and they have very little savings, do we think that it was smart to put them in an ARM, right? Hoping that the home would appreciate, telling them that you're going to be okay refinancing in the future. Because in this particular case, if one thing happened to their child and they had to go to the hospital, they wouldn't be able to recover. They wouldn't be able to make their mortgage payment. So there's a lot of good decisions that were done back then, and then also a lot of, unfortunately bad decisions. Now, ARMs are great products, right? But ARMs aren't for everybody. They're for a specific type of person who's able to handle that if there's an adjustment. It's just not for the everyday person. So being able to educate individuals about what happened, why there were changes that were made, why the changes were good to benefit the actual community in the nation, right? Especially when the comp laws came into effect. I mean, it helps a lot. The biggest thing is education, because a lot of people don't pay attention to education. They spend too much time reading or learning about things that don't really matter when they should be focusing on more things that do matter. And in the housing sector, you want to focus on those things. Why did things change? Why did things go this way? Could they have gone better this way? What's a better solution for the future? How can I create a better solution for the borrowers that I interact with that I can help? So it comes along with everything, when it comes to the changes from back then to, now, where we are now. It's all pivoting and adapting and changing. And right now we're in another market where you have to change. You have to be better than what you were before and willing to change your habits and your daily routines. And I call this new thing habit stacking. Like, I'm practicing everyday habit stacking. Which habits can I change? Which habits can I get better at, right? Because I'm going to survive this. I'm doing well, right? But in order for me to do well this year, I have had to change a lot. I have had to talk to more people than I've ever talked to in my entire career. I teach more than I've ever taught. I attend more networking events than I've ever taught. My reach is very, very wide. I'm trying to do more social media videos, more education, anything that I can possibly do to make sure that somebody knows my name and knows who to call, so that if I pick up the phone and call one of my past clients, I want to be able to say to them, can I count on you to refer me, your family and friends? I don't want to say, a lot of people, and I hear it all the time, even realtors say it. Hey, can you refer me some business? Well, the best compliment I can ever receive is a referral. No, you got to rephrase that, right? I want to know that I can count on you, right? I helped you in the biggest transaction that you're doing. I want to know that I can count on you to send me all of your family and friends, right? And then another thing I ask him is, who do you know right now that I can help? And then I just pause and let them think about it, because I'm putting it back on them. I want you to tell me who I can help. And so at the end of the conversation, you know, when we say goodbye, I want them to remember me. Like if somebody at their office says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a home, I want the first person you think of is me, so that you can call me and say, hey, I want you to call this guy at my office because he's looking at purchasing a home. So I want to put a little bit back on, you know, people that I've helped to make sure that they can help other people and we can do a better job making sure everybody's taken care of in this time of the market.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I want to dig in because this is such a mindset thing. And what, you know, we talk to loan officers every day, right? And I'm out doing seminars and I've got a whole room full of people and I'm like, how are things? And I get to watch their faces. To ask that question, like who am I going to help next? Like who's the person? You have to believe that there are loans to be done. And I think right now the biggest mindset shift for people is people go start their day going, everything's probably going to suck. Nobody wants loans. Rates are high. Like they start their day by just punching themselves in the face. And then they don't ask that question because it's like, I'm just happy I did the loan that was out there when there's a ton of loans out there and there's more loans if you just ask the question. But to do that, you have to have a firm belief that the answer is going to be yes, or that there's going to be somebody that they can lead you to, which has to be deep inside you, this passion for doing it, but also this belief. Like you have an inner belief that you can be successful.
Absolutely. And you can be successful in this market, 100%. And it is about attitude and how you feel about yourself, how you love yourself, and how you love your career and everything that you've done with your career, right? If I woke up every day and punched myself in the face, I'd be underneath the covers. I'd probably be an alcoholic. I'm not a drug person, so I don't really lean towards drugs, right? But I do know individuals and other loan officers that are currently in that space right now. They're drinking a lot. They're doing a lot of drugs. They're very depressed. They don't want to start their day. They don't want to get up and going. They don't want to go to network events anymore. They don't want to talk to borrowers, right? It becomes a very, very scary space if you let it become scary to you. And that's where you have to sit down and ask yourself, okay, what am I going to do to change this mindset to get into a better mindset, knowing that I cannot control what is going on in the market? Because you can't.
If you are watching this podcast and you're in the mortgage industry and you haven't checked out the Knowledge Coop, you definitely need to dive into the Knowledge Coop. In there, you will find content and community that will help you grow as an individual by learning everything there is to know about the mortgage industry. If you think you know everything, just dive in and take some classes because there's always something more you can learn. To be successful in this business, you've got to continually learn. In addition, if you're a company and you want to teach your people in your own environment, we've got that in the Knowledge Coop Enterprise Services. So reach out to us, check out knowledgecoop.com. Definitely join Coop Plus. Let's get back to the podcast.
Some really foundational things that you said that are so powerful. First of all, I think the words change, pivot, and adapt could be, you know, the keynote words for lessons from last time, because those can be incorporated into so many conversations we've had on this podcast. But you also talked about this assertiveness in asking for a referral in a more, I don't want to say aggressive way, but maybe that is the right word. But you can only do that if you're coming from a place of confidence. And that confidence comes from, if we rewind this video just a couple of seconds, you talked about early on in your career, educating yourself, being aware of what it takes to put a loan together, what a loan looks like, so that you can speak with confidence. I think that ability to wake up in the morning and be confident to ask for referrals or confident to approach the day with optimism comes from knowing you have something to offer because you are a professional. You know what you're doing. You're a student of your business. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment. Absolutely. I mean, you learn every day. Every day as a loan officer, you learn.
Yeah. I don't want to miss this too. This is also the girl that woke up and drove 70 miles. So you have to be willing to drive 70 miles to get what you want, right? It's going to be tough. It's going to be painful, but you're going to jump on a moped in some heels and a party dress and you're just going to go. Like that's a mentality. It's a mentality built at a very young age, it sounds like. It's a mentality that you reinforced when you went to Australia. You're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's see. When you went to the speakeasy events, how many have you been to?
I've been to 6 speakeasies.
You've been to 6 speakeasies. 6 times you've gotten on a plane having no idea what you're about to experience. Like there has to be a little bit of that, what's the word for it? It's
Chutzpah.
danger. Yeah, chutzpah. It's just danger's like your friend. You're not afraid of the unknown. And I think there are people who will really resonate with that, who are like, oh yeah, I guess I'm not afraid of the unknown too. I love change, by the way. It's part of my ADHD is I love something different. Like, give me something new, give me something different. So markets don't scare me as much because I'm like, oh, this is cool, like fascinating. Let's see what happens next. There's a lot of people who don't love change and it's harder for them. I think you have an advantage because of that.
It is hard. And that's why you have to change. 100% you have to change. And you got to believe in yourself, especially, I mean, they said 2022 is going to be a hard market. And we're like, okay, buckle up. 22 is a good, it's going to be a hard market. They're like, oh, we actually think the whole 2023 is going to be hard. People weren't prepared. Nobody was prepared. I personally don't think loan officers as a whole in our industry, nobody thought we were going to go through what we did right now in 2023, right? And so when it comes down to it, because falling back on the education, I hear realtors all the time at these networking events telling people, well, these borrowers keep saying they're going to go ahead and buy when rates come down. Like, no, you have to educate them, right? Because here's the deal. If they can purchase now and feel comfortable with their monthly payment now, they want to buy now. Because if they wait to buy, they lose out on the equity of appreciation. They have lost out on the wealth for building for themselves. And you know what happens when rates come down? It's going to go back into a bidding war. If you don't have $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to go ahead and give on overbidding, then you're going to lose out on home ownership. You're going to miss the next wave of it. So you want to 100% buy right now, even if your rate's 8% or 8.25% or 7.875, right? As long as you feel comfortable with the monthly payment where you can build wealth for yourself, that is exactly what you want to do. Now, if you can refinance later, that's only a plus, right? Because then you're only lowering the amount that you pay over the term and you're lowering your monthly payment, right? You can pay it off early and still continue to apply, but you still feel comfortable with the monthly payment, right? And so a lot of people don't realize that, because I hear that from first-time home buyers, and that's 100% inaccurate. I mean, even seasoned buyers don't want to do it. And I'm like, no, you have to change your mindset, right? Right now is when you want to build wealth for yourself. Don't wait to do it because you're going to miss the opportunity. Because as we're looking at the housing industry and all of the builders and the lumber and everything that's going to go along with it, right? I mean, I was talking to one of my builders the other day. He's a custom home builder, and he's like, hey, Kristin, I'm going to let you in on an insight. He's like, I talked to one of my lumber distributors the other day. He told me that they're not stocking up on lumber in the winter. They're only going to hold on to the inventory that they currently have right now. And they're just going to let it run out until spring of 2024 and then restock depending on how much is needed. He's like, so I can almost bet we're going to see another increase in lumber costs because they don't want to overestimate and buy too much now in case 2023 or 2024 is similar to 2023, right? They don't want to overextend themselves. They don't want to put too much risk out there. So even on the lumber stuff, right? We could see changes in the lumber market. But I mean, with that, with the inventory and everything that's going on right now, while we have low inventory, a lot of statistics and reports are stating we could see this low inventory to 2030, which is going to push us out several years. So if that pushes us out several years and you're a first-time home buyer, somebody who's going to buy, right? Are you going to wait 5 years to buy a home so that you can go in and not have to overbid and have a competitive interest rate? No, that's not wise. That financially, that's not wise, right? You find what you can do right now that you feel comfortable with, build your wealth, and if you get the opportunity in the future to refinance, then that's what we want to take a look at.
That's such a bigger picture perspective, which is so profoundly necessary in a market like this, because there's a host of people who, loan originators and realtors, frankly, who believe that interest rates are supposed to be 3%, that that's somehow an unwritten rule in society or even a law that interest rates are supposed to be between 3 and 4%. And of course, those of us who've got a few more miles on the odometer realize that that's not the case. It's just been this strange phenomenon that we've benefited from for the last nearly a decade. But you have a broader perspective than that, and you understand that that's not the way things are supposed to be, and real estate is going to be transacted in any market, even back when rates were 18%. People were buying and selling real estate.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I saw when I first got in the mortgage industry, I saw my parents, their little HUD-1 settlement, it was like 12.95% on an FHA. I'm like, wow, right?
Mhm.
But they afforded it, right? They did it when they were comfortable. So it really, you just have to plan for the best and educate and take a little bit more time being more of a relationship individual versus transactional. And that's where people get caught up and they lose kind of sight of what the future looks like with their career and how they're building every single day. Because in the mortgage business, everything I do right now comes to me 90 days later, right? If I take my pedal and take it down and I want to curl up in bed and put the covers over my head, it's going to hit me. It's going to hit me in 90 days. When I have no referral partners that I'm talking to, I lost referral partners to other loan officers who are still in the business, right? Because the loan officers that are not renewing their license this year, I mean, that is shrinking. So in order for me to do a better job, I have to create and take on more market share and be that person for my past clients, for my realtor partners, and for the individuals that I work with to make sure that I do a good job. Because if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. You lose the opportunity.
There's a word that keeps coming over and over in my mind and listening to you talk, and I got this in our conversation the other day, but it's been a recurring theme of this conversation. You are an overcomer. And I know enough about you to know, well, it's a beautiful characteristic. I call it the willingness to get back up. And you have an interesting story about getting back up after.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. So share a little bit about that story, because this is one of those areas where the personal crosses over into the professional, and yet the theme is still the same, being an overcomer and getting back up. Share a little bit about your love for ladders.
Oh boy, my love for ladders.
Well phrased.
So I see ladders now and I give them the side eye. We're not friends. We don't communicate, and we definitely don't hang out at all. Not at all. So I was in COVID, August of 2020. I was on a ladder in my bedroom and I was painting crown molding, and I was leaning just a little bit too far and the ladder started to go. And so I tried to catch myself by, when the ladder was falling, to go ahead and catch myself on my 2 feet. And I did not catch myself on 2 feet. So I was being courageous and wonderful and trying to do all these great things around my house. I was listening to David Goggins' You Can't Hurt Me. And I fell off.
What an irony.
Yep, you can't hurt me. And I fell off the ladder, and I had caught my left foot first, and then I put my right foot down to try and catch myself again, and crushed both of them and landed on my back. And I always wondered like what it feels like in the movies when something bad happens to you, right? If things go quiet, and they do, 100%. Everything gets really, really quiet, and it's like almost like a shock that comes over you. And then all of a sudden, everything gets really, really loud. And it did. It got really loud, and all I could hear was David Goggins like pounding into my head. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I started screaming. I'm like, help, help, somebody help me, right? And nobody was there. My mom just so happened to be visiting that weekend, and she was upstairs, and about 10 minutes went by, and she came downstairs and into my room and opened the door, and she goes, what are you screaming about? And I said, I fell off the ladder. And she looks and she goes, oh my God. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I said, you're going to have to call an ambulance. You're 100% going to have to call an ambulance. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to look. I'm just going to look to see how bad it is. And I looked, and it was bad. So I crushed my left ankle, broke my left calcaneus, which is your heel. I shattered it into about 1 million pieces. And then I broke my right calcaneus. So both feet were done for.
And when you look down, you're already seeing swollen ankles, and I mean, it's already obvious
like
that you've done.
Leg.
Yeah.
It happened so fast, it literally like poofed all the way up. So yeah, it was bad. And you know, like we talked about yesterday, like, so my mom was an ER nurse growing up, right? And she used to always tell us, like, make sure you wear clean underwear every day. Like whatever happens, if you ever go to the hospital, make sure you wear clean underwear, right? And I'm like, of course, Mom, like who doesn't wear clean underwear? Like, wear clean underwear, right? Well, right at that moment, she's like, you need to take a shower. And I was like, I'm not taking a shower. She's like, you need to take a shower. You can't go to the hospital like that. You're dirty. Like, you didn't take a shower last night. You just got up and started cleaning and painting. Like, you can't go to the hospital like that. And I'm like, Mom, I cannot get in the shower. I cannot stand. She's like, just go to the shower. Just scrub really fast. Scrub your important parts, because I just have this feeling that they're not going to let you go from the hospital. And I'm like, oh my God. So I crawled to the bathroom. I put my butt in the shower. She turned it on. I washed everything important in my hair. She turned off the shower. I dried myself off, quickly put on some clothes. She gave me a bra. I didn't put any underwear on because I was just like, I can't even like bend down to put anything over, right? And she's like, I'll help you put on some shorts. So she kind of put on some shorts, and she's like, so now what do you want me to do? Should I get the neighbor? What do you want me to do? And I'm like, you need to call an ambulance because you can't pick me up. 100%. And she goes, well, how are you going to get out? And I said, I'm going to crawl. I'm going to crawl out of here all the way to the front door for the ambulance to get me. Because the way that my house is set up, you have to weave in and out of some doorways, and they couldn't get the gurney in there. So I army crawled from my bedroom out through the hallway, through the living room, and army crawled to the front door. So the ambulance could put me onto the gurney.
Wow. That's incredible. And I don't want to fast forward too much to this story, but you did some serious damage to both ankles, and the prognosis initially was not good. You couldn't even have surgery right away because the swelling was so bad. The surgeon said, well, go home and take some pain meds because there's nothing I can do for you till the swelling goes down. But your prognosis for something as fundamental as walking in the future was not great at first. Is that right?
That's correct. Because when I got to the ER, they started taking scans of my back, because typically when people fall off ladders, they break their back. So they were concerned that my back was broken and that it was missed. And I'm very thankful that my lower back was not broken, right? Probably because my left ankle took the brunt of everything when I fell. So they were concerned. He's like, you know, you might not be able to walk again. Like, you have no idea how bad this is. So they ended up letting me go from the hospital, and they said, you need to find a specialized surgeon, because the surgeon that's on call cannot do this surgery 100%. So I started looking around at what surgeons were able to do it. And there was like 3 in the state of Texas that could take it on. One just so happened to be in Houston, Dr. 𝗫𝗄𝗂, who had done stuff for the Texans and for the Dynamo. And he's an ankle doctor. And he's also one of the only ankle doctors in Houston that has successfully put back together calcaneus fractures. So I made an appointment with him, went in, and he looked at it, and he's like, I don't think you realize how bad you hurt yourself. Like, you hurt yourself very bad. And he said, I can't do surgery right now. There's way too much swelling. He's like, we're going to have to push it out, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. He's like, you're just going to have to stay on pain meds and keep your legs up. And so they wrapped me in casts all the way to my hips, and I was in a wheelchair, and I waited for about 2 weeks until I had surgery. And surgery went well, but they ended up fusing one of the parts of my left ankle just to make sure that it wasn't arthritic for the rest of my life, so that I could walk again. So then I spent about 8 months in a wheelchair, and then I learned how to walk again.
8 months.
8 months.
How'd you get around?
Pushing my wheelchair, and my mom ended up coming and staying with me to help take care of Hunter and take her to school. And I just strolled around in my wheelchair and just worked. And of course, it was like the worst timing ever, because it was in the refi boom, right? So I literally would sit here at my desk and have both legs like this, like in the splits, so they could be above my heart. And I would just be typing like this. Okay, I can do this. And it got like, sometimes the pain was really bad. And this is one of the things that it bothers me about our medical industry, is that the potency of pills that they give you, right? So I was given a very, very strong painkiller, to the point that I couldn't even see my computer or the numbers on my desk. And there was sometimes that I would sit here and I'd go like this just so that I could like have a focus of what I was looking at. And I called them and I said, y'all, like, we got to change this up. I have to be able to work. I have to be able to function. Like, I want to be able to kiss my child goodnight. Like, I literally cannot just sit here like a vegetable in a coma every single day taking pain medicine, right? So I ended up getting a new prescription, and they had to outsource it to a special pharmacy so that it could be a pain medicine that didn't make me basically foggy in the brain. Like, I could still work and function and take care of myself, take care of, you know, my child, and do the things that I need to do. But yeah, I can 100% see how individuals could easily become addicted to pain medicine because of the feeling, because of how strong they are. Unless you stop yourself and you say, wow, this is a little bit too much for me. I think we need to have a talk about this.
You know, back to
So
change, pivot, and adapt. This happened during COVID, yes?
Yep, during COVID.
So the fact that it happened during COVID meant that you were already acclimated to working from home most of the time anyway, which is a blessing in disguise. And the whole industry had adapted to people working remotely. And unfortunate that this happens, but you already have this mindset of change, pivot, and adapt. You had to adapt with COVID. You're already set up to work from home. And now you're aware enough to say, these meds are making my mind crazy and I got to be able to originate alone. So the adaptation was, we got to change my meds. There's just so many great life lessons in that story.
I want to know though, I mean, you need humans, right? I've seen you at 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗁. You need humans. Like, that interaction feeds your soul. How did you make up for that? Like, you lost that by having to be, you know, in a chair at your house. What did you do to keep your head up or to get that interaction?
So honestly, I asked friends to come over and visit me because I couldn't really go anywhere. My mom would take me places, like, she'd drive, but I had to be careful because she couldn't pick me up out of my wheelchair to help me get into the car. So I had to be careful, like, how I did that, and, you know, not putting too much stress and pressure on her as well. But I would just ask people to come over. One of the things I loved is that Steve Sims during that time was doing happy hours with all the 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗁 members. So I got to see some friends over happy hours and say hi to them, and really spend time, FaceTime, of course, you know, like, hey, how are you? How's everything going? How's the healing? So trying to get out of the house as much as possible. I mean, there's a couple times, and I mean, I didn't want to miss, Hunter wanted me to teach her how to rollerblade. And I was like, okay. And I was in my wheelchair. I'm like, okay. So I asked my mom if she could kind of push me out. And I was like, whatever you do, don't let me go down the driveway because that's going to be terrible. So she like held me and took me out there to the street, and I held Hunter in between my legs. And I have pictures of me having both my casts on, and I put her in between my legs and I taught her how to rollerblade in my wheelchair. And I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to go outside and we're going to do this, because if I stop and I don't do anything and I just become this depressed person, it's not going to work out for me, because my soul is literally going to shrink, right? My soul is going to die. So I just did little things. I spent time outside and talked to as many friends as I could, and please come visit me because I'm desperate for love and compassion and, you know, companionship, because you need that. 100% you need that.
Change, pivot, adapt in every area.
And there's just no quit in you. Quitting's not an option.
Yeah.
Like, you realize quitting's a risk, and so you do everything you can to move forward. Everything about you is leaning forward.
I do lean forward. It's funny you say that, because my friend Heather said that the other day, that's going to Guatemala with us. She was like, Kristin, you know, when I first met you, I was kind of like, who is this girl? Right? Like, she's like, you're a leaner in. And I'm like, I am a leaner in 100%, because I just go places and I ask people to be my friend, and they think it's very strange, which I didn't realize that a lot of people don't walk up to other people, because that's one. And I don't know, Ken, if you ever knew this story, but how I met Courtney from 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗁. The first 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗁 I went to, I was standing in the lobby of San Francisco Hotel, and he was in front of me, and I was like, so how are you today? And he kind of like gave me this like, fine, who are you? And I'm like, my name's Kristin. I'm here for the 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗁. What are you here for? You know, and he's like, I'm here for the 𝗪𝗂𝗂𝗁 too. And I was like, do you want to be my friend? And he looked at me and he was like, okay. And he just kind of rolled his eyes and looked away like, what the heck? So Courtney and I still joke about it to this day because I forced him to be my friend. And now we're like the best of friends ever.
You're
And he's
like
and all
Dora
it
the
took was me asking
Explorer.
him, I'm like, do you want to be my friend?
You're like Dora. You're like, hey, Boots, come with me. Who wants to go on an adventure?
Yeah.
Okay, we can't ignore this wall behind you. So I haven't read it all yet, but what in the world is happening on this wall?
Oh, my lovely whiteboard. So I'm a visionary. I love to write quotes. If I hear something and I love it, I want to write it down to remind myself. So you can kind of get a little feature into some of the things that I write down. Like one of the things that I love is, what does my life look like if I manifest forward on my current trajectory? The magic you're looking for is the work that you're looking to avoid. Having a high altruist mentality, concern for the welfare and happiness of humans and animals. Are you aware that a lender's failure to perform will cost you thousands of dollars? Kind of goes through some marketing stuff over here about how you make decisions. Are you a decision maker? Are you a commitment maker? Or do you resolve? And I put, I'm a resolute. And I learned that from 𝗪𝗵𝗲. You want to be a resolute. You want to be that person that people can count on and be reliable to, right? You have a little bit over here. It says, who do I need to become by being a better mother, a better daughter, a better friend, a better loan officer, a better veteran advocate, a better associate, a better wife? Like, who do I need to become by doing these things? And this kind of comes back to me with learning and education every single day, right? What am I learning to becoming a better person? What do I need to change about myself to become a better person or be somebody that I would, rather be, or how to take care of stuff, right? A couple of good ones on this side is, I do not barter with God or share feelings without a charge, right? Because oftentimes when we're upset and we're anxious or we're angry, we share those feelings and they come across in tone of voice and aggressiveness. And a lot of times that can hurt a relationship, right? And we all have that. Things happen every single day, whether it's our associates, our friends, our children, whatever it may be. But trying to know in that moment, like, hey, I love you. I'm getting frustrated. I'm going to end this conversation and I'm going to call you back a little bit later. Okay. And then, because it happens. I mean, it literally just happened with me and one of my girlfriends about 2 weeks ago. And that's exactly what I said. I said, I'm getting frustrated. And she goes, I'm getting frustrated. And I said, I love you. I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call you back when I've cooled down just a little bit. And literally we talked a couple of days later and it was like two little clams that hadn't seen each other in 2 years. Hey babe, I love you. How's your day? Right? So learning the things that I need to do to be a better person. And then also teach my child, because she's watching me. She watches me every single day and she's learning from me. So making sure that I'm being the best person I can be for her, because I want her to be able to grow up and learn those things that I learned, that I didn't always learn at a young age, right?
Self-awareness with intention. That's really a powerful thing.
Well, I want to pull a lesson out of that too, because my wife, when she does counseling with couples, she'll put heart rate monitors on them, because there's something physiologically that happens as your heart rate rises. Your brain gets dumber and dumber. Like it's not dumb, it just can't function because your body sends all of the right indicators to the places in your body that you need, to, like, all the adrenaline has to rush somewhere, but all the adrenaline goes out and your brain just like can't function. And so to end a call like that, and I just did that too, and it didn't work as well for me, because the guy I was talking to was like, I can't believe you just did that. And I'm like, no, that's the best possible way we can end a call. I love you. We're both heated up right now. We should talk later. I'm going to end this call and let's connect at a later time. It's the best way. And then just back away, let the heart rate drop. And what my wife says is, invite your brain back into the room. Invite your brain back into the room and then think through it. And for me, like, I'll go shower. And then for some reason, the shower, just as it hits your head, your brain starts to clear up and you're able to calm down. But a lot of people don't do that. It's a really good takeaway.
No, I love it. And it teaches you, I mean, one of the lessons I learned growing up is be careful of your tongue, right? And I say that because your tongue can hurt a lot, even though we hear things like, oh, that doesn't hurt, and you know, your bones won't break. Tongues hurt, right? What you can say to somebody really, really can hurt them. And I think about it in that analogy of, if you take a hammer and nails outside to the fence, and you take a hammer and you nail something into the fence, and then you pull the nail out, there's still a hole left, right? So sometimes we have to think about that. And I've learned that lesson very hard in my life, where I can be very direct and say something, and even though I love you so much, it doesn't come off that way, right? So I have to be careful sometimes how I say things, just because I'm a very, very loving person, very compassionate, very empathetic. And then I also have a side of me that's kind of the business side, where it's very direct, right? Very, we got to make this happen. This is what we have to do these things, right? And it's tone and tact and timing. I call it the 3 T's: tone, tact, timing. How's my tone look? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What's the timing of this? Am I going to say something that could potentially damage this relationship for the rest of my life? Do I need to cool myself down? Right? So it comes back to all of that. So, I mean, I personally think it's good, and that it's okay to tell somebody, hey, I need a couple minutes. I'm frustrated. I love you. I need a couple minutes, and let's talk soon. You just have to remember that don't let too much time go by that you're avoiding that person, because you have to talk it out.
So we have a final question. We're going to kind of try to make the characteristic of the podcast. But before we do that, how can people get a hold of you if they just are fascinated by this story, which they should be, or they need insider wisdom on VA loans and how to do them, or if they just think you're wonderful and want to tell you you're wonderful? How do people get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So they can always call me. My cell phone number is 303-818-7505. I still kept the Colorado number.
Yeah.
Love it. All my past clients there, I still do business back there. And then, of course, www.KristinBabik.com. I am a branch manager with Network Funding. We love the knowledge coop because we get to use it every single day. And of course, see Ken's beautiful face. So.
Aw.
All right. Well, our final question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you could go back and talk to your 10 or 12-year-old self, what would be the message you would bring that you wish you had known then, or you wish somebody had shared with you then?
Ooh, so, I mean, I would think of a couple things personally. One, love yourself more. We spend so much time growing up as young children and individuals that other people's opinions matter more than what we think of ourselves. And it's important to really love yourself and get to know yourself and what you want your morals and values to be growing up, right? And don't let other people interfere with that. 100%. Stop worrying, because I worried a lot, because you can't control those things. I would have told myself to dance more. And I know that sounds crazy, but because I was a cheerleader, I used to love dancing. You know, tried out for the Denver Broncos. I made it to the second cut, didn't make it, but it's like, the things that I really, really love to do, I stopped doing because I was I had anxiety, and I was worrying and always trying to be the best at something and kind of forgetting the journey along the way. So absolutely take more time for yourself. Learn about yourself, learn what you want to do, spend time with the people that really love you, because you never know if something's ever going to happen to them. And it will, it's just a matter of when. So really, really spend time with those people that you love.
I love that.
That's a great way to close.
Kristin, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We really appreciate
You're
you.
welcome.
I can't wait to see you in Guatemala in January. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and I get to be part of your adventure. So very cool.
Well, thank you very much. I feel very honored and blessed that you guys invited me on. Very much so.
It was a pleasure.